that there is this whole practice called Jhum agriculture. Jhum is Jhum, Jhum. Jhum agriculture.
Jhum agriculture.
And this practice actually at a small scale, which means at the scale of communities, was a sustainable practice. Sun actually, as it shines and you have these autotrophs or producers or plants actually using them and converting them into food for somebody or the other.
Correct.
And that's how these all are protected.
Correct.
So now you are saying that energy does not belong to all this diversity, it belongs to human beings. Currently the energy mix says that we are using 80% of fossil.
Yes.
We many times feel that we are all electricity. No, that's not absolutely true. It is the whole energy system in the world today consumes 80% of fossil. World War II created this infrastructure for mass manufacturing because that was the time when we needed lots of weapons very quickly. So this whole machinery of mass manufacturing happened at the time of World War II.
I think it's really, really the need of the hour. And while the layman may not realize it, he will realize one day when he goes to the petrol pump and there'll be no petrol. Right. And that will be a rude shock to the whole humanity and industry, of course.
I don't want to really look at the root cause. We are talking about root cause, right?
Yes.
Why did this happen in the first place?
Yes.
I don't look at it. Because it is inconvenient. And every downstream problem solving is also very interesting for the economy.
Yes. Ajay Phatak is one of the most kindest and smartest minds I've had the privilege of knowing. An IIT Bombay graduate, an advisor to Niti Aayog and various global initiatives, and a trustee of Ecological Society. But most importantly, a man who still cycles to most of his meetings. Ajay has been very instrumental in drafting a lot of policy around decarbonization. He has guided a lot of governments and corporations towards a lot of regenerative futures. But what sets him apart, or what I admire the most, is how he lives. He lives his life with humility, integrity, and most importantly, a deep alignment with thought and action. Today we discuss about energy not as a commodity, but as life's currency. This conversation is about values, systems, and the root causes that got us here in the first place. So let's dive in. Ajay.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much. So I guess let's begin at the beginning. Why are we having this conversation? Why is energy important? And let's start from the human perspective. Okay?
Sure.
Because mostly humans are listening to this podcast through a human developed technology. So if we look at the invention or discovery of fire to discovery of artificial intelligence, how is energy at the base of all of this?
Yeah, this is, I think, a question which deserves a long answer. If you really look at the human history or human prehistory to start with, we are talking about some very interesting shifts in terms of how we started using energy differently. So as hunter-gatherers, even while we knew about fire, we were not able to, for a while, light fire and control fire. So real, control of fire was it substantially changed not just the way we used energy, but also the way we were able to destroy landscapes.
Correct.
But going before that, let me, take a step back. If you really look at this journey, we started with using our own energy. Essentially, technically, it is called somatic energy.
I see.
So the energy that we possess because we eat food, and that food is digested, converted into energy, and that's what we use to gather food again, and eat that food and continue doing that. So this was, in a way, if you really look at it from a sustainability standpoint, the word of course was coined very, very late in the history of humankind, was probably the most sustainable way of how we could live. We use the energy and we consume the energy, we use the energy again, and so on and so forth. So there are no real mechanism of any waste. All the waste was food for the nature, and that food was converted into energy again, which we used again, and so on and so forth. Again, I'm using only humans at this point in time, but it was pretty much true for all of nature, all of plants and animals living together. The way the ecosystems were formed and how energy flew in those ecosystems as well. So that's where we started, right? So we started living very nicely in a way. Maybe there was some inconvenience. We do not know because we were not there that point in time.
That is the popular argument, yeah.
But then we, get to the next level when fire was controlled. And when fire was controlled, several things happened. And several things happened because, one, we were able to essentially secure ourselves better. Many of the animals who were essentially our predators or could have been our predators, those we were able to keep them away. So one part was, of course, the security part of it. The other part was actually cooking, or rather converting resources into more digestible bits and bytes.
Correct.
Right? So, and that was accidentally found out.
I see.
So if you really look at it, as hunter-gatherers, in certain cases, when we didn't control fire, but fire was still there, forest fires always happened naturally. And they found that, tubers which were roasted tasted better. They were able to digest them better. Meat that was roasted because of animals who were also part of that fire tasted better, was easier on the stomach, and so on and so forth. So they realized that fire could be actually used. And once the fire was controlled, these were the applications, or rather the first application that we as human beings started to look at. So we roasted food. That became, as I said, and then there is follow with that, real transition in civilization happened when we actually started using and eating cooked food. There is a very interesting hypothesis called the cooking hypothesis.
I see.
So cooking hypothesis essentially talks about the fact that as we started eating more digestible food, the available energy started increasing.
Naturally.
For human beings. And if around 20-25% of the energy in humans actually is used up by the brain.
Right.
So there was a potential now for brain to grow.
Yes.
Yeah, there was energy available which for brain to grow. And sometimes between around 750,000 years ago to 160,000 years ago, that's a span. It's a long span. But that was the time when brains
the
size of the brain started becoming bigger and bigger. So by say 160,000 years, we were pretty much what we are today. You can say in terms of brain size, in terms of our ability to think, ability to act with whatever tools that we had. So that was the time when we were able to now start thinking the way we are thinking. Let's say.
So it's been 160,000 years since nothing much has changed.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And maybe even between 2 million years ago to 160,000 years, real change was control of fire. And control of fire and its use predominantly for the purposes of making food easily digestible for us. Now, between 160,000, you come directly, you can actually almost jump to something like 10,000 years ago.
So this is just pausing here for the interesting bit of the rate of innovation, or looking at the time scale at which technology is improving. It will be much relevant in later part of the conversation. Sure. But for almost 5 lakh years, there was just one technology at play.
Absolutely. So between 750,000 to 160,000, it's almost, as you read, 500,000 years or 5 lakh years. Technology at play, really speaking, was fire.
Right.
And of course, there were primitive tools. And because now fire was controlled, there were some tools which were better than the previous tools.
This is
Fire
the
was
Stone Age
used.
essentially, right?
Essentially, it's the story of saying that now I have access to a new energy source.
Right.
Apart from what I have,
Somatic,
right? It's
yeah.
exosomatic now.
Right.
It is outside of my body.
Mhm.
And now I can use it in whichever way I want, right? And so I started innovating, if you will. From that point onwards, I had a resource. And I said that this resource is fabulous, it's fantastic, I can use it in very many ways. And slowly but surely, we started using energy in one way or the other.
So this was a slight upgrade in the food chain,
Kind of.
right? Because we had a little edge over the other creatures, which was still subservient to the food chain.
Absolutely.
Right.
So if you really look at this might look a little tangential, but it's pretty important nonetheless. If you look at our, 6th and 7th standard biology books, you will see that food pyramid.
Right.
Now, of course, it is now kind of upgraded to a new lingo called food web, rather
Yes.
than a food chain,
Yes.
which is more correct,
More
more
appropriate.
accurate,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, what has happened? Where was human being in this? Really speaking, right?
Kind of.
If you really
herbivore-
go back,
yeah,
human being was actually a prey.
herbivore.
Yeah, not necessarily herbivore. He always, liked to hunt once in a while.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But he was more of a prey than a predator.
Correct.
Right, and he became a predator, more of a predator, only when he had access to new tools
Correct.
and later access to energy.
Correct.
And in this whole pyramid, you will see that human doesn't fit in any particular layer so easily.
Correct.
So you start with your, what they
Producers.
call producers or autotrophs.
Correct.
Then you talk about,
Consumers.
carnivore. First is herbivores, and then is carnivores and omnivores, and then
Apex.
predators. And we actually, in most of the ecosystems around, we are not there anywhere. Right? So we actually are kind of become, after access to tools, energy, and whatever we wanted to do with that, became super predators. So we were now able to kill a tiger. At one point in time, we always were afraid of a tiger.
Correct.
We were not able to kill tiger or harness or manage
Correct.
these predators. So that is what has happened, if you really quickly see, because of the fact
significant.
that we had now access to something very powerful.
Yes.
So energy was that way a very powerful tool, which we essentially started looking at.
Right. So this energy is in the shape of fire right now. Then what happened?
Right. Now, come directly now, I jumped from 160,000 to 10,000 years ago, roughly. Right? 10,000 years ago was essentially origin of agriculture. And it happened, of course, origin of agriculture has happened at multiple places across the world and also across different time frames. So 10,000 years ago doesn't mean that everywhere suddenly people
Correct.
started doing
Correct.
agriculture at
Correct.
that time.
Correct.
But
Roughly around.
that time, the first instance, if you will,
Right.
which is, all of us again know Fertile Crescent, part of our school geography. That's where the Tigris Euphrates basins, that's where we essentially started this agriculture. So what was the start of agriculture? It was an accident again. Right, so hunter-gatherers used to, come out of forest once in a while, and when they had a little bit more food for, let's say, few days, and when they started consuming things with access to fire, now they were able to eat other categories of food also. So, for example, for a long period of time, grain was never part of our diet because you cannot eat grain just like
Digest
that, right?
it. Your intestine doesn't
Correct.
digest.
So with the advent of pottery and grains, accessible grains, maybe in the wild variety, we were able to consume those grains. Right? And these grains actually were excreted when there were people together living for a few days. And then they realized, so they grow automatically. And that was probably a sign. They said, okay, something else is possible. If they grow automatically, why not we look at selecting them and planting them and so on and so forth. So that was essentially the
Birth of
agriculture. in its crudest form.
Right.
And because it required water, most of the agriculture wherever in the world evolved next to rivers. Now, this gives you another interesting, what you say, view into how energy is being used in very different ways. Now, rivers, as you know, also flow, but they flow because there is energy.
Correct.
Right? So water doesn't flow automatically. So it is part of the water cycle. Water cycle is essentially harvesting sun's energy, converting that into
Vapor.
potential energy, which is then converted into kinetic energy as water flows. And now this flowing water is available to us for giving to our plants, whatever you sow as part of agriculture. So I'm also harvesting this energy, which I'm not even aware that
Right.
there is some energy somewhere.
Right.
But I'm harvesting that energy, using it for the purpose of growing grain. And now suddenly I realized that this is interesting because now I can stay at a particular place for a longer period.
I don't need to move around. Yeah. So the gathering bit has stopped.
Actually speaking, it didn't stop. People kind of experimented with this for hundreds and thousands of years. Because, see, as hunter-gatherers, there was one very important and interesting part, that there was always peace of mind. Except for, and especially when I had fire.
So interesting.
There was peace of mind because as long as I was safe, I knew I will find food. And if I cannot find food, I can go to, nearby place, another piece of jungle, and find food there. So that to that extent, there was peace of mind. Here, the issue was that even if I sow grain, I did not necessarily know when it will, be available for me to actually consume. Whether it will be available for me to actually consume. So there was uncertainty as well. Right? So till the time we were uncertain that food will be or will not be available, we kind of went back and forth. In fact, even today there are communities who are part-time hunter-gatherers and part-time agriculturists.
Yeah, foragers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So especially in Papua New Guinea, where one of my author who I really love, Jared Diamond, has studied for decades. That community still continues to live in this fashion. So they go into forests for some time, use the land which is cleared for planting, let's say bananas or whatever their crops are, go back because they know that they are not going to get anything immediately. Come back when these crops mature, then stay there for some time till the time food is available, go back to the forest. So there are still communities of this nature which are still surviving.
This is amazing. Shout out to Jared Diamond. He's written Guns, Germs and Steel. Amazing book. Great starter into the world of energy and how the whole dynamic has played out. So shout out to amazing guy.
Absolutely. The amazing guy, several books. There's another book called Collapse, but we will talk about it some later point in time.
In the next question, yeah.
So, but I mean, so 10,000 years ago, that is what really happened. Now, very important part which we keep missing is that what was the impact on nature that we created as human beings when we started agriculture? And that is, nobody talks about it, and those who talk about it are a very few people around us, and maybe some environmental historians keep talking about it, like Jared Diamond, but not too many people.
Yeah.
And we really need to understand that, because we keep saying, for example, for India, that India is a country which is bestowed with best of the agriculture and so on and so forth. Bharata Sheti Pradhan Desh hai. But when we actually look at that, we have to start asking a question ki whether India is in the tropics or in the temperate zone. And why I ask this question is because temperate zone is a place where grasses are grown automatically. We learn about steppes and pampas and whatever these terms are. But those are the areas where grasses automatically grow simply because it rains most of the year. Across the year, 12 months a year.
Yes.
And therefore there is no need of watering, part one. Part two, there is also snow. And when there is snow, the land has to be fallow, which means there is time to regenerate. Now both these characteristics are ideally suited for agriculture. Right? And then what about India? So India actually, whatever grasslands that you see in India, largely, maybe there are some exceptions, are degraded forests.
Oh, I see. So the limiting factor is human deforestation or some kind of land use change because of human reasons.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
see. I
So
see.
land use change happened, and fire allowed you to do land use change. Now once humans saw that agriculture is a
I can
powerful tool,
Clear
they were
land
able
in
to
mass.
clear land.
Yeah.
So that was the impact that they started creating even in several thousand years ago. Even when they only really speaking had only fire in their control, and we'll see later what happened when they had more powerful sources of energy that came into being.
But cut to even today, Nachni and Jwar, matlab most of your millets are still grown by clearing forests and doing it 3 to 4 years. The soil fertility remains. Once it's done, they just abandon that piece, go to the
Yeah.
next piece. So,
So in fact,
unfortunately,
there
that
is-
model has continued.
That model has, unfortunately or fortunately, you can say. Uh, Fortunately, I say because you're at least allowing regeneration.
I see.
When they are, letting that land be, regeneration can happen, right? In fact, there is this whole practice called Jhum agriculture. And
How do you spell that? How do you spell that?
Jhum is Jhum, Jhum.
Jhum.
Jhum agriculture.
Jhum agriculture.
Huh.
Okay.
And again, I would like to quote from a book which is, again, a fabulous book by Gadgil and Guha.
Of course.
The book is called This Fissured Land.
Oh, yeah.
This is all about Indian ecology and what happened and so on and so forth. And there they talk about this. And this practice actually at a small scale, which means at the scale of communities, was a sustainable practice. Why?
Scale is the operative word there.
Yes, and we will talk about scale a lot
Yes,
when we
of
get
course.
to later.
Of course.
But when we talk about this aspect, when we say that these communities were using land in a particular manner. So let's say, as an example, they cleared 2 acres of land, 2 acres of forest. They did their agriculture for 4 years, 5 years, whatever, they were able to get reasonable crop, right? They realized that now this land is not good enough, left the land, cleared another patch, and did that maybe over a period of, their lifetime. They may not even come back here. Now, what happens, however, is this particular patch gets that time of 20, 25, 30, 40 years to regenerate. And as you know, and you maybe, in another part, this has been mentioned, is when you give time, nature takes over.
Yeah.
Right? So there is a potential of restoration, which we have not even tapped, which actually gives an ability, even for this particular
For her to
practice,
come
to
back.
remain sustainable. But only if, as you know, scale is an operative word.
Yeah.
At what scale is
Yeah.
an issue.
So, in space and in a certain duration of time at a certain scale, this thing makes sense.
It did make sense.
It did make
for that
sense.
matter.
But when you increase the amount of time and you increase the population of the people occupying that certain piece of land, then this system unfortunately starts to collapse.
Right, and if you start looking at it, how this thing really happened. So as we started looking at technology, and I always talk about technology so technology did not happen in thin air, right? So that is something that we really need to. It was not just about humans thinking, and technology happened. Of course, that is a contribution of human beings, which is substantial in terms of ideas, innovation, creative, juices flowing.
Yeah.
But it needed something more than that. And what was that? That was energy. So you take, for example, I graduated from wooden tools to metal tools.
Right.
I had no way of making metals till the time I had control of fire.
Right.
And I really understood how this fire could be used to convert raw
Absolutely.
iron into a metal.
Absolutely.
Which I can use. A metal axe, for example. So something whereby before then I was not even able to cut one tree.
Correct.
Right? So it was not possible, simply. Even while I might have dreamt. Right? And only way of doing that time was just put fire. But now I had more control on how I use this energy and to my advantage.
Correct.
Another point in agriculture, which is also very critical to understand, is that when you say that I clear a piece of land, what are you actually doing?
You're removing the above ground vegetation.
You're
on it.
above ground vegetation. And that piece of land, apart from protecting that little whatever vegetation it had, maybe it had trees, it had undergrowth, bushes, whatever.
All the stories of a forest.
All the stories of five canopies or whatever of the forest it had. And it also therefore contained a lot more than that, right? It contained microorganisms, it contained insects, butterflies, birds and animals.
Right.
Now, when you remove this part, as all of us, very well know, but important for us to, understand this connection, is now we are essentially saying that I am putting all these off. Yeah? 2 acres of land cleared, anybody there from plants to anything that was supported as part of this ecosystem, now they are not there.
Right.
And how are they supported? They are supported by solar energy.
Right.
Sun actually, as it shines and you have these autotrophs or producers or plants actually using them and converting them into food for somebody or the other.
Correct.
And that's how these all are protected.
Correct.
So now you are saying that energy does not belong to all this diversity, it belongs to human beings. So that is a very powerful aspect and idea that we have to really understand and appreciate, that all that comfort that we are getting, whatever, even right from the days of agriculture, is not just because of my ingenuity. One, I needed energy. Second, I am actually depriving a lot of diversity in getting that benefit just for humankind.
So a lot of the rest of the planet is paying the price for this comfort of us, right?
And every step that we take further, you will realize that that's happening more and more.
So this is just agriculture. And I'm already feeling the effects of the human footprint on the planet. Then comes Industrial Revolution. So what happened?
So, as we just started, and I will talk about it a bit, Industrial Revolution was essentially a confluence of 3 things. One, of course, scientific revolution, which was brewing for almost 200 years, even before we got our first steam engine out in 1756 or whatever.
Right.
But it was not enough to know science. It was not good enough to say that we know how to build an engine, let's say. We needed something more. And those 3 things, which included this whole scientific revolution and our ingenuity, availability of coal and availability of iron ore at one place.
Yeah.
And that was where this whole thing was born.
Yeah.
And we keep feeling, and we keep also promoting that technology and science and innovation and everything is all necessarily a human thing. So maybe science is human in the sense that science actually we try to explain natural phenomena. But technology is not just human. It needs something more. And one of the key things that it needs is energy. And coal provided that impetus. Coal was just available. We just, kind of initially gathered coal and eventually then dug holes in the ground and started mining coal. But the density of a little coal versus a whole big log of wood, if you compare, you're talking about 2.5, 3 times the density of energy in coal.
Yes.
So now suddenly I had smaller package and much more energy available to me. And this energy was cheap and it was plentiful. I thought it was infinite that time, for that matter.
Correct.
So we started from a point when I had nothing except for my own energy. Then I had fire, control of fire. I then also sought, of course, help from other animals like bullocks and oxes and horses, which are draft animals. Again, it was exosomatic. And now it was a huge amount of exosomatic energy suddenly available to me to actually convert all my ideas, which were brewing for last 200 years, into something which were real artifacts.
Absolutely.
And that's where technology happened.
Right.
So converting science into technology necessarily needs energy. You remove energy from the equation and there is no technology.
So just to simplify it, we went from manpower to horsepower, an elephant was maybe 5 horses. So 5 horsepower. This is Kulkarni Kaka's
Correct.
Nisargayan,
Right.
And from there, suddenly coal gives you horses.
Any number of horses.
Any number of horses in a very, very limited
Right.
form factor. Yeah.
So industrial revolution between, let's say, middle of 18th century to late 19th century, I call it a coal era. So most of the stuff was being run on coal. And then there were lots of issues. So this transition didn't happen so easily.
Right.
Because if you know that for a very long period of time in even cities, so how did cities happen in the first place? Cities happened because there was a need that all these machines which could convert, and one of the other important thing that we always keep in mind is we do not generate energy. There is nothing called energy generation. All we can do is energy conversion. So whenever you hear a word energy generation, you must object.
First law.
There is no energy generation.
Yes.
Right, but we continue to talk about generators, right? So there is nothing called generator, it's a converter. So we had this coal.
So fundamental, huh, by
it's
the
very
way.
fundamental, right? So we
Yeah.
keep forgetting that.
Yeah. Yes, continue, please.
Yeah. So if you start now looking at coal as a packet of energy and I started applying, you first were able to apply it. Even then, you needed a lot of coal,
Yes.
right, for achieving something substantial.
Yes.
So they were large machines, and they had to be at one particular place. You cannot suddenly, make 3D printers, which were small machines, which could be used from anywhere. So these were large machines which were run on coal. So they had to be at one place. So these factories, so-called, which converted one kind of material into another kind of material, ultimately product, actually needed a whole lot of people to use these and operate these machines at one place. And therefore, a lot of people from rural parts of England came to cities like London. And then they needed to move around, and the people used to move around on horsebacks most of the times. Even the initial railways, which happened because of the steam engines, were large beasts. They needed a lot of coal. They needed
Hungry.
They were heavy. They were hungry.
Yeah.
And but the advantage was that we didn't bother about how much energy they consumed. Neither did we bother about what was the efficiency of that machine.
Right.
We just realized that this can do a lot more than our previous generation work horses, literally. But work horses also had other problems. And those problems were that they fouled all our streets.
Horrible pollution.
And you probably know that one later part of 19th century, the English Parliament was closed for two reasons. And one was, all this horse shit, literally.
Oh, really?
And then a lot of sewage which was pushed into the river. So the
Right.
stink was
Unbearable.
unbearable. And it had to be closed for 7 days to clear everything off before it started again. Another issue which happened because of coal was one of the big events, again similar time frame, was London smog.
Yes.
And you probably are aware of that. And
Yes.
again, that also caused shutdown of the parliament.
Yes.
So these were the issues which happened when we said that, I suddenly have energy, but it also had its costs, right? And we had not solved that problem of making the air clean, even when I was using coal. So a lot of, in today's parlance, PM 2.5 and PM 10 was there flying in the air all the time. People had problems with the lungs. People had problems of all kinds. And there was issues related to smog and other things. People couldn't breathe. So those were issues, and we slowly but surely started finding solutions to this. But mind you, these solutions also required energy.
Yeah, this is the loop that I still see going on in the world right now. Yeah,
Exactly.
Nothing's changed. Yeah.
And later 1900s, we again discovered another new source of oil, and it's called, this is the next epoch in energy history.
So we went from coal to
Coal
oil.
to now oil.
Yeah.
Late, I think 1881, we discovered
Yeah.
this oil.
Yeah.
And of course, initially for almost 20-25 years, nobody really knew what to do with it. They understood that it can be used as some kind of a fuel. But come 20th century, we also created, now that we knew that there is very interesting form of energy that is available, and it can now ingenuity was combined with this new form of energy.
ICE, yeah.
Now we are talking about the first ICE engine in 1908,
Yeah.
and then the first motor car 1914 or whatever, which was
Henry
and
Ford.
Henry Ford always talked about so that was actually a birth of a completely new application,
Yeah.
which didn't exist so far. So
Yeah.
even when we much before this, you had trains.
Hmm.
You had trains for almost 150 years before you got your first car.
Right, right.
And the reason was again that small package, a lot of energy
Mm-hmm.
available in oil, and movement of oil was much easier than movement of rocks of coal.
Yes.
So both these factors came together, and now I was able to build mobility in a smaller package, which was not possible with coal. So till the time coal was there, trains were there. Most of them were cargo initially. Later, passenger trains started, in 19th century. But real small package movement was possible only when we had oil.
Right. So we've come to internal combustion engines.
Yes.
Just to spell out some basics. So when we say waste, we mean pollution. Just to spell it out simply, right? Second, we spoke about a theme of human organization around energy. First, that energy was rivers feeding our grains. So all human organization was around water.
And of course, even draft animals.
And of course, draft animals. And then once iron ore, coal, and science came together, became factories, and humans organized away from a natural resource to something that was man-made. So further disconnection from nature. I'm just tracking
Absolutely.
how we
disconnected.
How we disconnected and what was the degree of disconnection.
Absolutely. And
Right?
today, I mean, just as a joke, one of my nieces, when she was very young, I just asked her a question, where does milk come from? And she said, Chitra is, a bag or whatever. So that's the level of disconnection,
Yeah.
right? We don't even know where what do we eat, where does it come from today?
Where does water come from? From the tap.
From the tap.
It's, yeah.
Nobody knows.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately.
I'm sure that there are many
Grown-ups
people
don't know.
now that there is something called a river.
Sadly, yeah. Sad but
Sadly,
true.
yeah, but true.
So now we've come to petrol, okay, diesel, petrol, oil being used, and internal combustion engines have happened.
Right.
Cut to, I think the next epoch is internet. I think it's safe
It's
to
electricity.
say electricity.
And
Let's
then
go
you
there.
move to
Let's go there. Let's go
latest
there.
parts of the
Absolutely, electricity.
So electricity, if you really, the reason why we almost take it for granted is that it is extremely convenient. And in every step that you really follow in terms of different forms of energy that we kept using, convenience started increasing. Right? Managing bullocks was not necessarily most easy. Managing horses needed a lot of, management, so to say. And the energy available was also limited. Come coal, we had more energy available. It was much more managed. There was no need to feed the mines. You essentially want just, took the energy away. And all this energy is probably millions and millions of years old.
Yeah.
Right? It's again came from sun.
Yeah.
In events like previous mass extinctions,
Yeah.
and under high pressure, high temperature, they were buried,
Yeah.
and you got most of this fossil energy. That's
Yeah,
why
crude
they're
oil.
called fossil energy,
Yeah,
right?
fossil fuels. Yeah.
Whether it is coal or whether it is oil.
Yeah.
So when we talk about electricity is a very interesting phenomena. We just don't know, frankly speaking, where does it come from. It's very abstract, right? It flows. But we know that electricity exists only when we see a light bulb, or when we get a shock, or when something moves because of electricity.
So it's a subtle.
I can see coal.
Yeah.
I can see oil.
Yeah.
There is a physical form to this.
Yes.
For electricity, there is no physical form.
Yes.
Right? So it's even more abstract and even more difficult to understand as an energy source.
Right.
So electricity, and it makes it very convenient. I mean, everybody believes that there is always going to be a socket there,
Yeah.
and it's going to be available, right?
Yeah.
Especially the urban centers
Yeah.
across the world will take electricity for granted.
Yes.
Of course, still very large part of population still doesn't have access to electricity.
Yes.
Many times when they say access to electricity, it essentially means that there are 3 bulbs, in a village available. That means they have access to
Oh,
electricity.
that's the definition, is it?
So, so the
Loosely defined.
point is, it is not, so access to electricity doesn't necessarily mean that I have everything like I have in an urban house.
Yeah.
Right? So electricity actually changed a lot of things. Change from my ability to do a lot of things using coal and oil was limited to an extent. But because of electricity, I also knew many different phenomena. So now look at it, how I combined the science into a nature of energy, which could be used at all levels. You talked about macro level use of energy. When we say I am, let's say I'm using a quote unquote generator or a turbine in a hydroelectric plant, right? This flows through high tension wires, etc. At a macro level, at a micro level, we are talking about nanowatts of energy moving into ICs. So now you had an opportunity to use
Just
this concept. It's an abstract
spectrum.
concept,
Yeah.
huge spectrum.
Yeah.
And now I suddenly have an opportunity as a human being to start innovating far faster
Yeah.
than what I could do with physical forms of energy.
That's where the chips came in.
That's where the
That's
chips
where
came
very
in.
large
Yeah.
integrated circuits, VLSI came in.
Yeah. So slowly but surely,
Yeah,
we
from-
started moving from electrical to electronics,
Correct.
right? Because from macro to micro.
We started with mechanical,
We started with mechanical.
instrumentation, electrical, electronics.
Correct. And now many people, like software engineers, don't even know
What's the
what
hardware
goes
under the
there,
hood? Yeah,
right?
it's just in the
They
air,
just,
right?
Yeah, they are in the cloud. And
It's an abstraction layer, yeah. Quite literally in the
quite
cloud.
literally in the cloud.
Yeah.
So that was electricity, right?
Yeah.
And if you now look at some very interesting things that happened after I started innovating faster. So you go from the coal world to the oil world. You found more applications of how I can use this energy. Now all these new applications, so one of the big applications, or even before oil, one of the big applications was how to convert coal energy into electricity. All the thermal power plants, right?
Yeah.
So thermal power plants convert the coal energy into electricity. We needed a lot of ingenuity to figure this out. But once we figured this out, I virtually had this very, very high quality energy, which is the electricity, available to me on the tap. So I didn't have to go anywhere to find coal. I didn't have to go to the petrol pump to fill my car. I had it available all the time. And now I started thinking about how best I can use this even further.
Another thing that happened is you could now dust the garbage under the carpet without you realizing. So the pollution could be displaced. See, till this time, the coal was creating pollution in your backyard. So there was no escaping it. You were seeing it.
You're seeing it.
But now the thermal power plant is somewhere in the forest where it's creating pollution. And here electricity is
see
just
that.
clean. There's no pollution.
No, for that matter, interestingly, if you step back a little bit, when we moved from horse carts to passenger cars, people felt this was fabulously clean. Okay, because horse carts were, you had horse shit everywhere.
Yeah.
And
This was just smoke going up in the air.
And this was thought that is nothing, because that was so clean compared to the
Horse shit.
physical manifestation of pollution on the streets.
Yeah.
So every transition, we felt that we are now become cleaner. Right. So here we thought that we became cleaner when we started using diesel or petrol compared to when we were using coal or when we were moving on horse carts. So pollution and waste are very interesting concepts. And so I think I'll talk about a little fundamental stuff that started happening middle of this 20th century.
So
it
we've
was-
come to electricity, right?
Yes.
Huh.
So while electricity, I'll digress a
Let's
little
go.
bit
Okay, let's go.
and talk about something with there was an economist. His name was Nicholas Rogen, and he was the first guy. Actually, there was one more fellow before that. He was a chemist, and I'll talk about him also. They were the first, people who started understanding the relationship between energy and economics. So they essentially said that our economic systems are thermodynamic systems.
So interesting.
They are governed as to how energy flows.
So there was a connection.
There always was a connection, as we saw, right? Our
No,
civilization.
the real connection is there, but
Yeah.
right now people seem to have disconnected
Yeah,
from.
no,
right?
what I'm
Yeah,
saying is when
yeah.
we talked about all this history, we always saw there was a connection. Right?
Okay.
Economic activity mostly started because of the fact that we were able to make things, trade things, and so on and so
Correct.
forth. We were able to do that only because there was an underlying energy which even then people
Facilitated
did
us
not know
correct.
or did not realize. Even today, most of the people do not realize
Correct.
that there is that connection. But these two guys, Frederick Soddy, he was a Nobel laureate winning chemist.
I see.
But he realized that there is something much deeper. So he kind of dabbled into this whole area of economics and energy, and that was way back in the 1930s. And then later in the 1950s, Nicholas Rogen kind of formalized that even further into this whole idea of marriage of thermodynamics and economics. And there's a very interesting statement he made. I don't think I can quote him, but I'll tell you what
Loosely,
that
yeah,
is
let's do it,
loosely.
yeah.
He essentially says that when we are talking about making products, okay, how is the journey? So the economics is the journey of destroying pristine nature, okay, and converting it into waste. In the process of doing this, we derive certain benefits, and that's economy.
This is amazing. That's really what it is.
That is what it is. But if we realize that, we will do something about it. Of course, now fortunately there are several economists and scientists who have thought much further on this, fundamental idea of what is really happening, and therefore the way we need to change systems, etc. But it's still
Work in progress,
in the backyard.
Yeah. Because all of the famous forces. But yes, coming back. So we've now, so this is exactly what we are trying to explain to the layman. This connection of the deep connection between energy and economy, right? So we came to electricity. Electricity enabled, in a way, computers, and computers enabled the internet. And today we have AI, and it's rumored that the ecological footprint of AI is counted in the energy required by cities. That is the amount of energy AI requires, which a lot of people don't talk and is not advertised, right?
Yeah, in fact, very recently, even Sam Altman, who is considered
OpenAI, yeah.
So he talked about this aspect, and he talked about this with a concern, saying that this is definitely a concern for the AI community and humanity at large. So if you really look at the projections of energy that is likely to be consumed in 2035, just like a decade away from this, is going to be more than 10% of all the energy that is used in the world. And mind you, we continue to believe in urban spaces that energy is only for transportation and what we use in electricity, right? And there is very fundamental thing that we keep forgetting, that all this stuff that we have here, how has it come to being?
I was just going to say that this is exactly how I wanted to discuss this question. The chair that we are sitting, this microphone, the walls in the building that we stay, everything has a phenomenal energy footprint, right?
Absolutely.
This has happened because there is tons and tons of diesel, tons and tons of petrol, tons and tons of electricity, coal
too. Yeah.
All of this is being mined so that we can sit in this room, switch the lights on, and have this conversation.
Absolutely. And that is something which, because people, it is not front and center, we kind of take these things for granted.
It's out of sight, right?
It's out of sight completely. If you're just switching a light, bulb, essentially is a combination of how energy flows and how economic system works. I'll give you an example. You put a switch on, right? You put a switch on, we see light, and we are happy. We don't really try to go back. But what really happens? Now it actually signals. It signals the electricity, we call it generation, so I'll just continue to call it generation. So electricity generation company saying that I need more electricity. Right? Now, like one fellow, if you are talking about hundreds and thousands and millions of people.
No, let's take the population of Pune. Let's take the population.
So let's say that they suddenly in the evening put the light on. Now you will see that there is a demand that is put to the generation company. Now generation company says there is higher demand. So they will need to generate more electricity. That means that they will need something else. If they are thermal power, they'll need coal. If they are hydropod, they'll need more water coming from the dam. If they are something else, they'll need something else, right? So they'll need some form of energy powering that, so that electricity can be generated, or that energy can be converted to electricity. Now once that happens, they see that the coal that they had in their store is depleted. So then they need to put that order out to the coal company. So coal company says, oh, there is more order for coal, so they need to find coal. So they'll say, okay, let's put the order to, or let's mine more coal. But in this whole business, you also are talking about the generation or requirement of electricity growing slowly but surely. At some point in time, one switch and the realization of an electricity company, I'm not able to fulfill this because I do not have capacity. So suddenly they say, I will add another turbine or another generator. Now all this plant machinery that is manufactured somewhere else, so the order goes to that machinery manufacturer saying, I need another turbine. I need another how is it made? It again needs a bunch of energy, and this whole thing continues to flow in circles. This is economy. Right? All these aspects of ordering one thing for the other is all economy. And in certain cases, when I put a light bulb, want to put a bulb on and it fuses, I put another order for the light bulb, and then the light bulb company economic chain starts operating, and of course more energy gets used, and so on and so forth. So every action that we do when using energy actually triggers a chain of economic activity. And every economic activity that I do triggers a chain of energy that I am going to be using. And that so it is so interlinked, it is a nexus. I don't have one or the other. I have to have both, and you can, it is just other side of the coin.
I'm just going to illustrate this very simply. Your action of switching on the switch at the beginning of the chain triggers the destruction of an natural ecosystem at the end of the chain, and this is justified by a monetary transaction that you have with another human being or another set of human beings. And he says 13 rupees per unit, 200 units you consumed in a month, you pay me 800 bucks. This collection of 800 bucks justifies the destruction of a natural ecosystem. This is essentially what's happening.
You're absolutely right. And that's why, if I just give you a seed of thought. So we don't have to be always doom and gloom.
Okay? Yeah, so we'll get to the happier part.
So we are talking about, but we need to understand this. And unless we understand this, we don't even know what to do with this.
Correct.
Right? So, even as an engineer, when I studied in, mid-80s, late 70s and mid-80s, when I studied, nobody talked about even the word called sustainability. Rachel Carson had already written a book in 1960s. The Club of Rome report was out in 1970s, but we didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
We were not even, and unfortunately, as you know, engineers and technologists make economic decisions. If you really start looking at this full canvas and say that when does pollution happen?
Hmm.
So I had this realization after almost, soaking myself in this subject for 5-10 years,
I see.
that every time pollution happens, it is because of accelerated use of energy.
That's it. Okay.
Any pollution that happens, whether it is material pollution, whether it is air pollution, whether it is water pollution, think about it.
Accelerated use of energy.
So, for example, I want to take a bath. I'll
Hmm.
give you a simple example.
Hmm.
Right? I want to take a bath.
Hmm.
I use whatever 15-20 liters of water. It comes from a tap.
Yes.
How does it come from a tap?
The whole ecosystem,
Right?
rivers,
So
dam,
it comes on a tap. There is the
pipeline.
need for pumping somewhere, some treatment. Everywhere there is going to be use of energy.
Yes.
And fortunately or unfortunately, currently the energy mix says that we are using 80% of fossil.
Yes.
We many times feel that, we are all electricity. No, that's not absolutely true. It is the whole
Yeah.
energy system in the world today consumes 80% of fossil, right? So given that, you are actually saying that you are causing pollution somewhere whenever you put on a pump,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're getting water.
Mm-hmm.
You consume more water, you're generating more pollution.
Mm-hmm.
You increase the rate, pressure of water, you're making more pollution,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the quantity and the rate at which you use a resource, you're causing a pollution.
Right.
And that's accelerated energy use.
Correct.
So that's the way you look at pollution. Whether it is water, whether it is air. So go faster, you're going to create more pollution. By and large.
Yeah, I think this is touching on the end use approach to energy, right? Like if I want to take a bath, I can go in a river and take a dip. That is also called taking a bath. But yeah, I mean, life unfortunately is not like that
Not
for
so-
most
so
of us.
easy yet.
Not so easy yet. So we have to organize ourselves in cities and we have to open a tap and yeah. But essentially, it's what you want to do. You want to take a bath. But the faster and the more convenient way for you to take a bath is what is causing
All the side effects.
all the side
and
effects
which we
that we
don't
see.
count. So that's externalization, right?
Correct.
So if you go back to this date of mass manufacturing, which happened after World War II,
Mm-hmm.
World War II created this infrastructure for mass manufacturing, because that was the time when we needed lots of weapons very quickly.
Hmm.
So this whole machinery of mass manufacturing happened at the time of World War II. And now we didn't know what to do with that machinery. And therefore there were brilliant economists who said that let's convert this into mass manufacturing. That was the worth of advertising. Now suddenly I started making far more products than I could ever need. And then there was a need to sell those products, right? So I started selling those products, and every time I made those products, what happened in the back end? I started using more energy.
This is the roaring 20s.
Actually, after World War
After
II.
World War II.
Between World War I and World War II, this trend slowly started.
Hmm.
World War II accelerated it tremendously.
Correct.
And post World War II, this whole phenomenon became so. Like, in fact, we always joke that if you have to eat any food item, you should eat something which is never advertised.
Yes.
So eat a guava. Don't eat kurkure.
Yeah.
Kurkure is advertised. Guava is not advertised.
And both are fast food.
Both are
by the way.
quick foods.
Yeah, both are quick foods. Yeah. Is it safe to say, I mean, just I'm exploring this thought. Is it safe to say that the birth of the manufacturing industry happened during the war? Like
Yes,
mass
pretty much.
manufacturing,
Pretty
the
much.
way we see it?
So manufacturing, actually, if you really look at it, it goes to just post-industrial revolution.
Right.
So the Londons and bigger cities which started assembling and putting
That
on
was
manufacturing of some kind or other.
Yeah.
First it was textile machinery, the basic things like
Yeah.
clothing, etc. But again, as we progressed, so to say, we started making cars, and then that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
But the scale up of this whole thing,
Definitely
if you look at
happened.
the number of cars in the early 20th century and number of cars today, do you know the number of cars we have today on the road? Any idea? Approximate number? 1.4 billion
On the road.
on the road. So though that's an existing fleet and how much ever we are adding, maybe 100 million a year, we continue to add every year.
We just want to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Right? That's the need. So this gives us a very real glimpse into why this conversation is important. Yeah. Every action we take has an energy footprint on the planet.
Absolutely.
Okay. So now that we know this, see, I think it's very interesting. So I'll just read out a quote, and I have these written because yeah. So it says, the Stone Age didn't end for the lack of stone, and the oil age will end long before the end of oil. Or my favorite author, Michael Pollan, he writes, every calorie of food that we eat takes an average of 10 calories of fossil fuel energy to produce and deliver. So we are consuming way more energy than we are generating. It's safe to say that, right?
Not generating.
Converting. Yes, consuming.
Yeah, consuming. Yeah. So the point is, in fact, there is another interesting physicist. His name is Andrew Bartlett. He said that modern agriculture is converting petroleum to food.
Yes, it is.
And that's where we have landed.
Yes.
Because of the fact that we wanted more and more food, and we wanted to waste more and more food.
So it's a distribution problem. It is. It's a little weird, isn't it? Like it's almost human arrogance. Is it safe to say that I want to have mangoes in winter, and I mean it's all coming from there, right?
And that's one part, but it's also related to human psychology. Now, if you really look at, there are communities where if you do not leave food, then it's considered that you are not eaten well.
I had this experience.
Yeah, you have had that experience.
Yes,
but
yes.
That's how. So that's
I was made fun of this. I was made fun for this. So I actually, I won't name people, but I studied abroad, and they made fun of me because we come from a background where you don't leave a morsel of rice. Shit पण नाही सोडत आपण, right? आणि so I used to do it there also. Irrespective of whether I was in a 5-star or whatever that environment was, if the food came on my plate, it would be
cleaned up.
Yeah, properly. If I was in a less serious setting, I could probably lick the plate also. That's how much I love eating. But I was made fun of. And my roommate, who was Singaporean, actually spelled this out for me. He's like, Swapo, I think you should, leave a couple of things on the plate and stuff like that. I firmly refused, and I said, listen, where I come
we are
from.
talking about waste, quoting some numbers would be very interesting.
Let's quote.
Today almost 39% of the food worldwide is wasted.
Oh my God.
And to grow this 39% of the food, what goes behind it, right? You need enormous amount of energy, enormous amount of material, all kinds of systems, and therefore additional energy that goes into making those, etc. So you look at the amount of food that we waste, and in fact in advanced countries, so-called advanced countries, there are people who can just live off good food which is thrown into the trash can.
Oh yeah. There's a beautiful book called Art of Frugal Hedonism. Beautiful book, and these guys, they are husband and wife, and they love fancy cheese, but they can't afford it. So what they do is they track big marriages happening in big halls, and simply after the marriage is over, they go around the back to the dump yard, and all this good cheese and good wine and good fruit and good bread is being thrown away.
Just throw, that's
and
terrible.
They just load up their van and they live off it like kings.
This throwing away also stimulates your economy, because that's the next day's order.
Unfortunately, yes.
Unfortunately, while we are dumping material, leaving material, and wasting energy, but we are also essentially saying that if I do not waste, I don't have an order for the next year. Next day.
Yeah.
So that is how your economic system is. Bakeries in most of Europe at 7 o'clock. So there is an interesting story that at 7 o'clock in the evening or whatever that time is, they say that my day is over, and all the stuff they will just dump. So there are or there is another very interesting thing that happens in Japan. They are slightly better than this. They say after 7 o'clock, my food costs 50%.
I see.
And at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, I am going to just throw away whatever is remaining. So there are many people who actually say that I'll wait till 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
They cannot afford good food, excellent food.
Yeah.
They'll say 7:01 and I get it at 50%. And in European, this is wasted unless, and they don't even give many times because of this issue of food poisoning and whatnot. So that's a very
So it
strange
compulsorily
thing.
goes into the dump yard.
So you are making far more than what you really need, and then throwing it. You're throwing all good energy down the drain. You're throwing money down the drain, and essentially you're saying that that's required in a way, not stated so explicitly, that that's required for my economic system to function.
Yeah. I think economic growth and the whole design of the economic system is clearly broken. I just don't see what we can do to push it to change. A lot of people have been trying for a long, long time.
Correct.
There have been countries like Bhutan who've actually moved away from GDP and moved towards a gross happiness index, and they actually, please don't quote me on this, but about 66% of Bhutan has to be under forest cover or something of that
70%.
sort. About 70% of Bhutan has to be under forest cover. And literally the people of Bhutan are happy. They are really happy. So they are optimizing for human well-being. And apparently GDP is also optimizing for human well-being. But
There is a hope that GDP is optimizing for human well-being. But people forget about this connection. So economists will not talk about well-being. Sociologists will. Economists will talk only about GDP, with an assumption that growing GDP will always bring well-being.
Yeah, like money will
They
buy
don't
you
even
happiness.
question.
Yeah.
They don't even question that whether this connection is so strong. And we now have enough studies to say that beyond a particular point, various countries have different so-called points, but beyond a particular point, more money doesn't mean anything
Yes.
to people. I mean, it doesn't really bring well-being. In fact, it can even go down.
Yes.
Right? So, well-being is something which needs to be looked at, and well-being can happen in other ways than just growing GDP is not yet explored sufficiently. Even while there are some very interesting thoughts around this by some of the environmentalists, some of the economists, as to this can change. We will have to look at this whole phenomena a little bit differently if we were to kind of move again to becoming better than where we are.
Why do you think this is not coming in the mainstream? What is your take on it?
Frankly
it seems like
speaking,
common
it's very
sense,
inconvenient.
Right?
For three reasons. I mean, measuring well-being is very difficult if you really look at it.
Okay.
It's very difficult to actually say that what is my happiness, right? Even while we have so-called gross happiness index and genuine progress indicators and so on and so forth, they are not easy to measure. So one of the most important part is that we still, even today, we do not have a good enough, easy measurement which will say that therefore people are happy. And that is one of the big reasons why economists continue to say that, yeah, we understand that, but that's how it is.
So you can't oversimplify well-being. You can't quantify it exactly saying
and because
7
the
out
world
of
we
10,
live in
8
is
out
a
of 10.
quantitative world, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's very difficult for people to, and especially the policymakers, to say that I have a good enough indicator. And of course, fortunately, a lot of work has been done. In fact, at least 7-8 years back in Ecological Society, we did a small exercise on saying that establishing the need for an alternative index.
Yes, very important.
And so we did there's a good 50-page monograph available if you want to read sometime.
Can we link it in the podcast for people to see? Is it in the public domain?
It is not published,
Okay.
but we can of course put it up. if we need to.
It's worthwhile, I think.
There is a very good study that we did for almost almost a year,
I see.
and did lot of survey, lot of literature review as to what kind of indicators are available, and this is basically establishing a need. It didn't talk about new indicator.
What the indicator will
should
be or how
we
it
didn't
should
talk
be.
about
Okay,
it. But
I
we
see.
said that why it is important to have a better indicator than what it is, what we actually go by today.
I think it's really, really the need of the hour. And while the layman may not realize it, he will realize one day when he goes to the petrol pump and there'll be no petrol.
Right.
And that'll be a rude shock to the whole humanity and industry, of course. What is this whole thing about energy transition? What's your feeling about it? I don't think it's completely clean, first of all. And I think there are a lot of vested interests and hidden agendas at the back also. Especially we see cops and we see all that is happening in that universe. We come from that world, so we are seeing what's happening. And it's definitely not clean, right?
So actually, I'll again go back, to a little bit of history.
Let's go.
When we talk about energy transition, you would first realize that energy transition is not a short-term business. It takes a whole lot of time for any energy transition.
Correct.
So, for example, when we said that we go from somatic energy to exosomatic energy, step one, we probably needed 1 million years. Okay. Now, when we said that we want to go from there to start using draft animals, we needed a few thousand years. From there, we came to coal, it needed another few thousand years.
1,000 years, correct.
And every transition is long. Right now, even when you're talking about transition to using coal, no, it didn't happen suddenly that on one night people stopped using wood and started using coal.
Yes.
Right, so wood to coal transition took maybe probably 100 years. Coal to oil transition is not even complete today. Yeah, so even today we are using good 30, 35, 40% coal.
Yeah.
And a lot of oil, and
Yeah.
then there's some amount of
Alternatives.
alternative energy. So if you look at some of these time frames, it takes a while. That's one part.
Correct.
Second part is every time we keep feeling that we have solved a problem, and we kind of forget that the way we have been solving the problem for last at least 250, 200 years is looking at problems downstream. So if there is pollution, for example, end of the pipe, let's take a vehicle. I say, okay, I will create a catalytic reactor, I'll put it there. I don't want to really look at the root cause. We are talking about root cause, right?
Yes.
Why did this happen in the first place?
Yes.
I don't look at it. Because it is inconvenient. And every downstream problem solving is also very interesting for the economy.
Yes.
So because you're solving one problem, creating 10 more, that means you're creating 10 more problems, solving them, creating 10 more products, using more energy in the process. So never in the history of humankind we have seen a dip in energy use, except a little bit during COVID times because people are sitting at home.
So you're saying, unfortunately, what we are doing is solving downstream. And every time we identify a downstream problem, we find solutions for it. GDP increases. It's good for the economy.
So the interesting part is we don't question whether we are solving a real problem.
Never.
So look at it, for example. Now let's go post car, right? So we thought that we solved a problem of pollution because that time horse shit was the problem. So we found something, we created new avenues, we created different type of pollution. We realized it, that we found a problem. Now to do that, what did I do? I added catalytic converter. Catalytic converter doesn't come out of thin air. You need energy to produce that converter also. You need material, you need energy, so that the whole system behind it. And that gave an impetus to the economy further. Because now you produce cars and you also produce catalytic converters, right?
Yeah.
So if you really look at the way we are solving problems, we are always looking at solving the problem as we see it. We don't try to figure out whether I have framed the problem right. And actually when I used to talked quite a bit with Professor Gode between 2008-9 when I did the course, and another 3-4 years till he was there many times, going to his house, and we used to have conversations around this. And what I really learned from those conversations is we need to start looking upstream.
Correct.
Whether you're talking about ecosystems, whether you're talking about energy, whether you're talking about what we do, we are not looking upstream. We are always looking at where is my problem, how to fix it.
So
So
adjust
it's-
it up. The next apparent thing
So
that
this
you
whole idea of ability to prevent a problem is not gelling. For a reason is prevention is too inexpensive. And it many times doesn't really kickstart the economic activity.
nobody makes money. Let's put it simply.
Yeah. So, for example, we know that a good part of GDP comes out of things that we do not want, right? But it is there. It's counted as part of GDP, and therefore we say that doesn't matter. Even if we don't like it, maybe GDP is increasing, right?
Employment is one of those. It creates jobs. So a hospital is good because it creates jobs
Yeah.
for 100 people.
I think you hit a very interesting point, and I also have written on energy and employment. Okay, so we keep believing that we will find a way to employ the set of new people who are coming into this employability bucket, right? But at what cost? Take an example that when we were hunter gatherers, everybody was employed. There was no problem.
yeah.
Yeah, they
So
were
to
employed
speak, yeah.
gathering food and eating food and
Yeah.
so they were everybody. There was no problem of there was no employment. Right? They were doing meaningful work because they ultimately collected and ate and were happy to eat what they collected. Then even later, when we talk about the civilization and agriculture happened, surplus happened, so on and so forth. Every time, if we look at it from a perspective of energy again, what exactly happened? We continued to consume, but at the same time we are also giving back. Now we are actually today we are going linearly.
And employment basically is.
And employment is directly proportional to additional use of energy.
Yeah.
I'll tell you how.
Yeah.
So, for example, before automation, we had a lot of people doing a lot of manual labor. So there were, let's say, 100 people. They're working on machines where they actually needed to put in manual energy, manual labor to get something out. Now, come an era of automation, one person can do 100 people's job. But at what cost? The energy cost. So now, for the automation system to run, an automatic machine to run, you need far more energy,
Yes.
right? And you have only one person producing those 100 products. Let's say everybody created one product at that time. Now he creates 100 products, right? One person uses 100 times more energy. Now if you want to employ another person, let's now take the cost of employment, energy cost of employment. If you need to employ one more person, you are going to need that much more energy.
Yes.
Correct? And I'm going to have that many more products to sell.
Yes.
And therefore, that many more people in sales and marketing, and
Need to
therefore
go and
people have
sell
to
it.
consume,
Yeah.
and they have to therefore throw and dump. There is no choice.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what has happened every time. I always tell a story in this context.
Let's get into it.
We are talking about this, connecting employment and energy and what exactly happens, right? So take an example of, when I started working in mid 80s, we started having those 8-bit computers.
Yes.
And my first job was in sales.
I see.
Okay, I used to sell pumps.
I see.
And that was for this Pune company called Alfa Laval.
Right.
And they made those dairy pumps, high quality steel pumps. Each pump that time costed some 30, 40, 50,000 rupees. So that was expensive stuff. And I used to sell those. And the process of selling was that customer would come, he will talk about what is requirement. Then I would collect that requirement, send it to Sweden. through a fax that time. And when they will sit on that requirement, get me a feedback after 7, 8, 10 days saying that, okay, of the line of pumps that we have, this is pump number 9 or whatever is suitable for this particular person. I would give that back. Then they will sit on it for some time. And maybe after a month, one sale will happen. Now I talked about this computer, right? I kept seeing all this. And I said that why do we need so much time? That time I didn't know about all this I was talking about.
Yeah.
And I said, why do we need so much time to actually, get the right pump selected based on the customer requirement? I mean, we could do it in no time. And I had a good friend in the IT department of Alfa Laval. I said, let's write a program, a small one, which will look at all the data that we have, look at all the models that we have.
It's a matching algorithm.
It was called it's a product selection algorithm,
Yeah.
right, based on the requirement. I said,
Yeah.
and then we'll create one form. That time we did not have Google Forms and stuff like that, but we create a form. We get that form filled from the customer. Give that form to, you put that answers in, and boom, you will get the whatever pump that you need to sell. And if I have that program available to me as a salesperson, I will get the quote right away. So my boss said that it looks like a good idea. Show me what you will do. So we actually spent some time on it. We created a program. And what is the impact of this program is something I realize now. So instead of now being able to sell one pump in 1 month, whether that was good, bad, ugly, I do not know, I am now in a position to sell any number of pumps, at least from a selling capacity. Right? And that essentially makes my company say that I can now make more pumps.
Yeah.
Right? That means that I give those orders to stainless steel company, Tata Steel or whatever, and therefore they mine more ore. And now instead of one pump, I suddenly can sell 30, 40, 50 pumps a month. So my scale increases 50 times, and all the back end you're talking about. Material, energy, economy.
So what you
So my
enabled was
ability
growth. Yeah.
to improve efficiency,
Yes.
right, caused all this, which is absolutely fabulous for the economy.
Yes.
Right? And today, if I give the same thing to anybody, he'll happily say, oh, absolutely, let's do it. But that
Yes.
time, for some queer reason, because we were a Swedish, collaboration, etc., they didn't take that. I said that then I don't want to work with you, etc. But the point I'm trying to say is that this kind of intervention, which is so easy now, compared to when, even in mid-80s, actually causes a impetus to our economic system. And therefore impetus to material use, impetus to energy use, and come back saying that now I want to create an employment where now one salesperson can sell 50 pumps. I need to add another salesperson. I'm going to need at least another 50 pumps to make and sell.
Yeah.
That means all the energy that has gone into making those 50 pumps is going to be involved in creating additional employee.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with automation. So this actually tells you how it accelerates even further.
It's exponential.
So information technology, while it has created enormous amount of convenience, has caused these side effects which people have not realized.
Yeah.
You then came to email, and then now you're talking about IM, and then now you're talking about WhatsApp. So the decisions that we made that time when we were using faxes in 7 days now can happen in 1 second. So the potential of scaling is whatever, 7 days in seconds divided by 1 second. So that's the scale now I can operate.
Mind-boggling.
So one is creation of additional job requires far more energy, and second, it also requires far more material and far more ability for people to consume. And that's an impetus to saying that waste more.
Yeah.
So my economic system, when it grows and says that I want to spur consumption, you write, every time in economic times you say that, we are going to do something to spur consumption. On one side, for people who do not use things, they absolutely need this. So, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that, therefore nobody should use nothing, right? But the point is that spurring consumption is okay until a particular point in time. But we are going beyond that.
Yeah.
Not just that, we are also creating enormous amount of inequity in the process.
Yes.
All our new businesses are continuously producing what I call as discretionary products at the cost of resources, at the cost of energy. And that is something which is therefore not available to others. Only those who can afford. So why would I invest? Because I am able to sell.
More iPhones in the world are not solving poverty or hunger issues.
No. That's not an issue. That's not an issue. The issue is that any new gadget I want to make, I will make for the haves.
That's
because
right.
they can afford it.
Exactly.
Right? So that's where things are going.
That's
so
right.
that means that, and then you're saying all the resources, all the energy that has gone into making these products, it's like you go back to agriculture, where we said that I clear a patch, I am diverting that energy for my own need. That is happening within human system now. That energy is being diverted only for the haves. And that is therefore not available to those who do not have. That's the strange part of an economic system. I think people have understood this. It's not that people have not understood.
Clearly.
At least from this perspective, that this is happening. So people at least take cognizance of the fact that yes, there is inequity.
Oh, yeah. Inequity is absolutely clear. What I am finding very hard to grapple with, honestly, is we are obsessed with growth. I don't think it's going anywhere. Okay? We have growth trends. The Prime Minister of our country, the Honorable Prime Minister of our country keeps saying that we will keep growing at 7%, 8%, whatever it is, right? So growth seems to be a non-negotiable, unfortunately. So the whole alternate concepts of steady state economics and all that goes out of the window. If we have to grow, in your expert opinion, is there any way or any mechanism or any framework through which we don't cause the carnage, the energy consumption racket that's going on at the background? Is there any way these two things can be balanced, where we are not exploiting energy and we are growing as a human civilization? Is this possible? Is the simple question.
See, if you really look at what we call as absolute decoupling, which means that I will continue to grow in economic terms, but I will not grow in energy or material terms, it's not really possible.
So it's impossible.
But while you say that, can we do far, far, far better than what we are doing today? Absolutely yes. So technically, if you say that no, I want to just grow economically and not add even a kg of coal in my energy mix next day, that is hard. But can we really say that today I'm adding 100 kg of coal for growing 100 or getting 100 rupees? Tomorrow I will add only 1 kg of coal and still get 100 rupees. It is likely. I would not say that it's impossible. And that's why all the sustainability discussions and dialogues have to happen around this idea of better trade-offs. We have to first look at directionally moving in
the right direction.
Correctly, right? In the right direction. You have to move in the right direction first, and then keep thinking about now what more can be done. We cannot overnight just say that stop this. It's not possible.
Yeah.
And therefore I always say that there is a transition pathway. We do not have transition. We have a transition pathway. So if I keep using the diagram, which is very popular and which is something which describes how do we test my next action, whether we are moving in the right direction or the wrong direction. So every action, if it makes a better trade-off. Now what does it mean? So let's take today's situation. Today's situation is, and for me, economics is not monetary economics. I don't care whether it is 5 trillion rupees or 25 trillion rupees. So for me, economics is resource economics.
That's the real economics.
Yeah. So underlying thing is resources, whether they are material resources or energy resources. So now look at this bucket as set of resources. If now demand for those resources is higher than what nature can provide sustainably, which means year after year after year, decades after decades, centuries after centuries, then I know that this economic system cannot survive. Very simple.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to need more resources, which I'm going to keep extracting that from nature.
They deplete.
At some point in time, they will become zero. My economy will become 100, and that it will collapse.
Correct.
That's a very simple math.
Correct.
So that means that I have to find a way whereby how can I grow nature, right? So first is how can I do more with what I have?
That's step one.
Step one. Second, how can I make sure that my resources that I see are actually increasing and not decreasing?
Okay.
So I will give you an idea whereby you will have an understanding. Now take an example of a business like a paper mill, which uses bamboo. Okay. Now if that paper mill produces only as much as it can have the raw material available year after year, decade after decade, centuries after century, then I can say that that paper mill is sustainable.
Very deep concept here. We have to talk about this. You're talking about limits.
Yeah, there is a limit in terms of at what scale you can operate is decided essentially by availability of resources.
That's
right?
it.
Unfortunately, our systems are very short term. So we don't really, so corporate systems are quarter on quarter. National systems are 4 years or 5 years.
Right.
And all these businesses decades and centuries. So unless that there is a shift in focus, while we understand that we have to provide something short term, we are not saying to therefore that forget short term. We have to do something short term, but we cannot say that we will only focus on short term, right? So unless you start thinking about long term, start putting in ideas like saying that okay, harvesting has to be sustainable. How do you sustain it? You have to respect the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity means there is a limit, how much ever that land can produce. If you say, no, I want more, then I am going to need another acre of land. And today, the overshoot is we need, the biotic resources that we consume today, we are exceeding the budget by 70%. Year on year. So we are talking about 1.7 Earth equivalent of biological material that we consume year on year in terms of budgeting. So it means that if I use 170 kg of rice today, actually I'm borrowing 70 kg from the next year.
From the future, essentially.
From the future.
Something that was meant for our future generations and for our
children.
And
that is, if we continue this stress, at some point in time, as I said, we will just implode, right?
Yeah.
So we have to figure out how we can reduce this stress.
And you're saying that does not mean stay hungry today.
That doesn't mean stay hungry today. And we can definitely work on this problem of waste. We already have more than enough food that is produced in the world.
Exactly. So 40% is getting wasted, like we already discussed.
And consider all the resources that go into making that 40%.
Yeah.
So we are wasting so much already. So this is one of the wedges that they call, and of course people have talked about it. Is nothing new, but we have to really focus on saying that can we not waste? Now, if we do not waste, our economic system doesn't allow that in today.
So
we talked about it, right?
We are talking about incentives now. We will talk about that also in depth.
So now the situation is that current economic system at least doesn't allow us to say that don't waste. That is what, unfortunately, is the situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a conundrum. And that's we have to really deal with. And there are some ideas and ways in which we can look at this differently and start reframing our problems. And as we start reframing our problems, we start realizing that there are solutions which are not always downstream.
This episode is brought to you by Nature Care Fertilizers. I have been personally using Nature Care Fertilizers on my farm for the last 3 years, and the results have been outstanding. Not only is it good for your plants, but it's amazing for the environment as well. This is the complete solution to an evergreen revolution. If you like that video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell icon so that you never miss the next episode of The Root Cause.